Now, Tristan, how how do I get $5 million in a month to make my short film? How do I?
That is a great question, Cody. You just go roll up to the bank and be like, "Hey, can I have
Hey,
five
can I have $5 million?
million dollars to make my
Great.
movie?" And they'll be like, "Yeah." um,
Welcome to the Best Boys podcast. I'm Cody McLeod Rogers, writer, director, and producer.
and I'm Tristan Au, director of photography and producer.
And together we are the creative directors at Foreground Productions. This podcast is where we pull back the curtain on what it's like to be independent filmmakers as we embark on the journey ourselves.
This is Practically Speaking, our series where we give real life advice on getting started in the film industry based on our own experiences. If you like what you hear on the podcast, feel free to like and subscribe for more.
Welcome back to the Best Boys podcast. I'm Cody McLeod
I'm
Rogers.
Tristan Au.
And today we are talking about how to start your short film, how to actually make a short film. And before we dive deep into this conversation, I want to say something that I believe to be extremely important throughout this entire process. And no matter where you are, whether you are writing the screenplay
Mm.
or getting ready to actually make this film happen, you need to keep the why super close to your heart. You need to never let go as to why you are telling the story in the first place, why you're in this art to begin with, and why hopefully maybe you feel like you can't do anything else with your life.
Hmm.
Because keeping that close to your heart will guide every decision you make, especially as a director, especially as a producer. So before we dive into it, just really ask the questions, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
And never let that go.
Yeah.
Now we're going to dive into it. And there's one kind of like caveat before um we get further in. We're talking about this episode with the assumption that you already have a script, and this script is a producible script. So, what does having a producible script mean? It just means that whatever script you have is within the budget you are capable of getting, right? If you have a $50 million budget, hire Skywalker sound and, crazy VFX houses, do
Hmm.
whatever you want.
Hmm.
But odds are, especially if this is your first short film, you probably have little to no budget. And so, what that means, for a producible script for your first short, maybe for a student film, there can't be lots of VFX. There can't be a million different cast members. There can't be super complicated camera movements. There can't be a million locations, just keeping all those things in mind. So, with that being said, we're going to dive into how to actually make your first short film with the assumption that you have a producible script within your budget capability.
Yeah, and the things we're going to talk about today are pretty sort of pretty general steps in the pre-production process. We're going to make future episodes about very specifically like sort of probably each of these processes cuz
Yeah,
you could
diving
talk
in deep. Yeah.
you could talk hours about
Yeah.
pre-production. Pre-production is like it's the most important part of production in my opinion.
Absolutely.
It's taking account like anything and everything that could go wrong and trying to mitigate that and trying to solve those problems before they even happen and trying to make your film the best it can be. That being said, sort of like we said earlier, one of the first things that you should do in your pre-production process is creating a pitch deck.
Yes. Yeah.
I think a pitch deck is essentially a presentation that you would use to pitch something. So, like if, say, for example, you are in a room with producers and you've got like a visual guide for pitching your story, that's what a pitch deck is. It's got your log line, your
Characters.
character bio, yeah, characters and character bios. Um, Typically, you'll have stills from other projects that sort of gives your whoever you're pitching to the sort of visual style, the vibe of what your project's going to look like, feel like.
And a great tool for that is Shot Deck.
Yes.
Just Google it, Shot Deck. I think it's shotdeck.com. It's this wonderful library of just stills from
Yeah.
thousands of movies
And TV.
and
Yeah.
TV, and you can download these stills and you can put them into your presentation
Mhm.
to help create a visual guide for
Yeah,
whoever you are pitching to.
exactly. And I think the pitch deck is really important to make in the beginning because not only, are you pitching this project to actors, but you're also pitching this to crew
And yourself.
and yourself. Yeah,
Like, and
I think it's
yourself.
like again, it's understanding the why,
Yeah.
like why you want to
Yeah.
make this project. If you can't fill out a pitch deck for your story for your script, you have to reevaluate. Okay, why this story and why now? You
Yes,
know, um,
exactly. And so you're for the pitch deck, you're going to be going into Google Slides, into Canva, into PowerPoint, whatever you want to do. You're going to on that first slide, you're going to grab a nice still of a major visual element that
mhm,
you want to display. You're going to put the title of the film, and then right after that, you're going to have the log line.
yeah,
After that, you're going to dive into the characters. You can put some major plot points, right? Providing a summary, a synopsis is very helpful, more than just a log line. You're going to dive into the characters, and then you're going to dive into if you already have talent on board, if you already know who the actors are going to be, you want to put them in that pitch deck. You want to talk about your key crew, director, writer, DP, and then from there, it's really talking about visual aesthetics, some of the music that may go along with it, festival deadlines. If you want
mhm.
to submit to a festival, these are all the major elements to have in a pitch deck. And then as you're actually pitching it, have fun. Obviously, it can be nerve wracking having that public speaking. Maybe you throw on some cool music, throw up
Yeah,
Spotify Premium, so there's no ads, of course, but get some music going underneath your pitch, you
I
know?
was gonna say when Cody and I pitch a project, or it's always Cody, always puts music in his pitches. So he'll pull up something like like a playlist on Spotify, and it'll just be like full of like um Wes Anderson songs or like
Yeah.
songs from like whatever Pinocchio,
Yeah.
the Guillermo del Toro one,
Yeah.
like and play that music while pitching, and like it actually does work. I
Yeah.
think it works. Like
Mhm.
because music is so powerful, it invokes that kind of emotion. And yes, in a pitch, yeah, do whatever you want to evoke the emotion and to just capture somebody. Like make them visualize it, make them feel the story.
Tristan and I have talked to executives and former executives and development executives at, you know, some of the major studios. And one thing they have talked about is how draining pitch days can be when people are coming in and pitching to them. Again, we're talking about a short film here, so it's probably being pitched to a class or something like that. But a good just rule to have when it comes to this is it's a performance. But we're not talking about, Mean Girls, get up there, sing, dance, do all this kind of stuff, but it's a performance and
Yeah.
and people want to know the why. Why are you doing this project? Put it in your pitch deck.
Yeah.
It's super important
Yeah.
because if people buy into the why, they buy into you personally. And if it's
Absolutely.
personally connected, right? That's a good thing. But having music and keeping people engaged, right? And that's the pitch deck.
Even writing it out the why
Mhm.
helps you,
Yeah.
like even like just for yourself.
Yeah.
Um but yeah, like that's the pitch deck. The next thing, again, these are all super general, but the next step usually is making a budget
You
for your
gotta make a budget,
yeah,
yeah.
for your film, which again, yeah, if you don't, if you're working with little to no money, can be difficult, but there are some things that you do sort of that you should cover on a film shoot
And
and budget for.
one of those first things is who's getting paid, who isn't,
Yeah.
right? We all want to get paid. Like, that's the goal, right? Because it is Earth, it is the world, it is society, you have to make money, right? If you're doing your first short film, odds are you're not paying people, and that's fine, you know? There are avenues that we'll talk about later in this episode of raising money and trying to get that money, but odds are doing your first short film, you probably don't have 20 paid crew members. Maybe you need to bring someone in who's a sound person, or somebody more specialized to do a certain thing, and maybe they have to be paid. But that's kind of the first thing from there, and then the second question is how many shoot days?
Right. That's probably the most key question is how many shoot days. Because each day is money. Each
Mhm.
day another day means another day to spend on food, another day to spend on a crew, or a location or whatever. And so it can be really hard to, especially if you're, looking at your script and you're like, I have no idea how many days this would be. It's just pieces of paper, like words on a page. A really good, there are some sort of guidelines on how to sort of schedule like a shoot around a day, and deciding what a day will consist of.
Mhm.
One of the the rules is everybody talks about is the 5 pages a day rule. It's, if you have a script that's 10 pages, realistically you could shoot 5 pages in one day, and that would be 2 shoot days. Now, 5 pages a day is usually the max of how much you could shoot in a day. And again, it is dependent on a case by case basis. You it If you have multiple locations, if you have complex camera moves, if you have setups that have to be at night
Mhm.
or exterior night, then you can't fake it and do it in the day, then that obviously affects your scheduling. But
A
in general, 5 pages a day is where you kind of start from, and then you from there you sort of break it down to more specific
and
schedule.
location moves.
Yeah.
Full company moves are they just take up so much time, so much energy, so many resources. And in one of our later pre-production episodes, we'll go in to how to maximize full company moves and how to work with multiple units,
Hmm.
which is key to doing stuff like that. But for this notion of full company movements, right? Even if you're just hopping from one apartment across the street to another, which Tristan just did on a film
Yeah.
a couple
Yeah.
weeks ago,
Yeah.
it still takes hours. It still takes
It's like
hours.
minimum an hour,
Yes.
and like, you can work ahead as much as you like, like you can work ahead as much as you want, like ship gear over there that you don't need to the other location, like it's like before you actually get there, like Cody
Mhm.
said, with like a second unit. But it still takes like minimum like an hour just to do even that, cross the street, because ultimately you got to break down, and then you got to truck everything over and then build it back up.
And
um
so there's this rule of, again, a lot of these rules we talk about are just like they're not really written down anywhere. They're just kind of like exist.
you just like learn about it, like you they
Somebody says it like one time randomly on a Tuesday,
yeah,
and
and
then
then you get on set and you're like, oh, okay,
yeah.
actually this is a thing, or maybe it's not,
Yeah, and one of those rules is absolutely no more than 3 company moves in a day, and 3 is, like, extremely ambitious and probably should not
Yeah,
happen.
two alone is very like, coming to was always difficult. We've done two moves in one day a lot, which again very long days. But three is no, it's very difficult.
It's a lot,
Yeah.
and so now you have your amount of shoot days set, you have your amount of company moves set, you have who might needs to be hired, whom you need to bring in. And again, a lot of that comes down to examining your network, examining
Mhm.
who is around you, examining who is able to help you and in what position. And building your crew is vitally important to the success of your production. And you need to be building a crew that they can't just be good at that position, right? They just can't be a good DP,
Mhm.
or they just can't be a great human who's horrible at being a gaffer, right? You need to find a middle ground of people who have buy-in to who you are as a person, right? So people who believe in you, who believe in the project, and that is the most important thing. So as you're building out your crew, obviously, again, if this is your first short film, you probably don't have lots of people to choose from,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
But out of the people you have access to, really consider what role fits best for them.
Yeah.
Pay attention to
Yeah.
who they are as people, what gets them going, what things they don't like. They may want to they may say they want to be an assistant director, but if they don't show up on time, if they are not organized, but they say they want to be an AD, they should not be your AD.
Yes.
So pay
Absolutely.
attention to how people act around you in your network and build your crew from there.
That's such a great point, because certain roles do have different like better like fits for like personality types, you know, and like even if somebody doesn't know that that's what they'd be good at or not be good at, um, that is your opportunity to try and an opportunity for them to learn.
Mhm.
And you definitely need to pay attention to like how am I going to build the best crew out of the people that I know, um, in order to make this set successful. A lot of times I see a lot of sets that are unsuccessful is because you have people in these roles who don't exactly know what they're doing. They
Mhm.
don't exactly know what their role even entails.
Mhm.
So also having that sort of structure and communication about this is what you are doing on this production. An assistant director on two different student productions might be doing very different things
Yeah.
based on what the director or producer has told them,
Mhm.
right? So that is another really important note in pre-production is um, having regularly scheduled meetings before you
Yes.
shoot.
Absolutely.
That's something we always do.
And
We
always.
yeah.
And in that initial meeting
Mhm.
that you should have, you know, the process should probably go, you have a meeting with your let's say you're directing, okay? You're directing this short film. The first people you should meet with is, AD, perhaps a director of photography, and a producer if you're lucky enough to have a producer who actually knows what producing is.
Mhm.
More on that in another episode. But your first meeting is just that core team, the people who are really bringing this life to project. Then from there, maybe and again, these are all arbitrary structures. These are just things that we have learned along our sometimes tumultuous journey
Mhm.
of
Mhm.
trying to do this filmmaking thing, right? Then that second meeting, bring in the department heads,
Right.
right? The people who are still very core to the team, but are in leadership positions, and then have the full crew
Yeah.
meeting. Talk
Yeah.
to everybody who can make it to the meeting. And in that meeting, you should pitch the absolute core people and then the full team, your pitch deck. That's another time this pitch deck comes into play. And
Mhm.
wearing that why on your sleeve is really important. And then also why specifically them for these roles.
Mhm.
If you are leading this project, if this is your project, you need the people on your team to feel wanted in those roles.
Absolutely. I think you essentially you want everybody to be on the same page,
Yes.
like by the time you go into the first principal day, you want everybody to at least know what the story is about
Mhm.
and how what they're doing to execute that,
Yes.
right? The vision, right?
Yes.
Um Even for like the the PAs, the grips, they should know at least in general what the story is about and how they are contributing to the production. Another thing that is really important is delegating information to your department heads, right? As a director of, so you're making your first short film, you are as the director and the writer, you probably don't have a producer or you might be, doing most of the producing yourself. You do not have the like time of day to explain everything to everybody.
No.
So,
And it's okay
it,
not to.
oh yeah, oh,
Like,
absolutely. Oh my God, So delegate that to other people, to your gaffer, your DP, your other producer, your AD. Like these are people who can like communicate with everybody else for you,
yeah.
right? Like that is why the structures are put in place, you know. But that's a little bit about, crew. I think we could talk a little bit more about scheduling. I think that's really important.
Yeah.
Because again, how it's very difficult to just schedule in general. Um, Personally, because I'm a DP, I work very closely with the director about the shot list, and the shot list is something that again we're probably gonna talk about in a future episode because there's a whole art to shot listing. Some people don't shot list, some people storyboard and shot list, some people, everybody does it differently. But essentially, a shot list is important because it is a plan, right?
Yes.
It is a plan and a sequence of how you're gonna shoot. You can't just show up to a apartment or a restaurant or like a field and just go with the flow because at the end of the day, you have to shoot in the most time efficient manner. You have to be aware of like what is coming next,
Mhm.
and that's basically this is again the fine sort of details of the shoot, like not just what scene is next, what shot is next, what setup, what are we setting up for, like what lights do we need, or all that kind of stuff. That's gonna be a whole other thing. But once you made that shot list, either if you're the director and you want to make it, or you want to work with your DP on it, then from there you sort of know what scenes you're doing on what sort of day, how you can group those scenes together. Obviously, it's very dependent on location, how to group locations together, and I think that's how you really decide your shoot days, because then you can see, okay, we have these locations
Yeah.
on this day. We have a lot of scenes at this apartment. Let's do all of them on one day.
Yep.
And even if you have to sacrifice, like, oh, there's some night scenes and some day scenes, shoot day to night. Find a way.
Which
Um,
shooting day to night means you are shooting a night scene during the day.
Yeah,
That
which
that's that's
that
what that is, and
and
it's
there
hard,
it is
but
hard.
sometimes it's the only way to do it
Yeah,
within your means.
there and it's the usually the most budget friendly way to shoot at night. It's better because people don't have to do like an overnight, which means going into the late hours of the day
Mhm.
and shoot actually during the night. It's but those are things you have to do, and so you know that way you really get a sense of like what this production looks like after that shot list has sort of been created.
And so just a real quick overview of that shot list is it needs to it needs to have necessary information, right? It needs to have interior, exterior, it needs to have what is in the shot, the camera movement, and again, all of that is just mapping out how much time are these shots going to
Yeah,
take.
yeah.
And once you have that shot list, again, all of these things, it becomes so hard to talk about actually making a film because everything is interconnected,
Hmm.
right? Like, what do you really do first? Do you make the budget first? Do you make the shot list first? Like, well, you should make the shot list first to then inform your budget. But if you know you can't do more than $5,000, then you take that $5,000 and you make your shot list work within that, right?
Right.
Like, it's all interconnected, and it's hard to kind of like track and follow and think about sometimes. With that being said, going back to scheduling, it's not just a shot list you have to schedule. It's also lunch and
Hmm.
meals and
Yes.
breaks
Yes.
and thinking about, okay, I know this shot is going to be really demanding for the director of photography because it's a complicated move or it's a long, one take or something like
Yeah,
that,
or a
right?
shoulder rig, a handheld. Yeah.
Then there should be breaks, right? And
Hmm.
you should schedule for those types of shots to take longer. And so the ultimate thing with scheduling is thinking about what does production look like every step of the way. Like sitting back and visualizing who's picking up the coffee, when are they doing it? Is there enough coffee? When do we need coffee by? Where are the extension cords coming from? Okay, do we need more extension cords to come another location? Like, is the food hot? So does it need to be eaten as soon as it gets there? Like
Yeah.
all of these elements, every step of the way need to be considered for scheduling,
Yeah.
and it can be very overwhelming.
Yeah.
And just know you won't get them all.
Yeah.
You just won't.
There
And it's fine. Pre-production is the art of, as Tristan said, mitigating as many issues as possible, but there's still going to be issues.
yeah,
And
that
that's
you
fine.
don't plan for. I think the best thing you can do is rope people in when you are making those decisions. When you are scheduling, you should be talking with your DP, your assistant director, maybe a producer about your decisions. Like, you know, for example, I've worked on shoots where, they set the call time to like maybe 10 a.m., 9 or 10 a.m. And I tell them, based on what you want to get on this day, we have to start way earlier than that. We have
Mhm.
to start at like 7 or 8. Because it can take like it just straight up takes like an hour to even get people like sort of ready and eat breakfast and start building the lights and start lighting up the shot and starting to set up the camera, start the video village, get the sound up. Like these things do take time. So, having everybody aware of the plan is really important. You can't just be the only one in your head knowing the plan and being like, "Oh, I know the plan. It's okay. Everyone's just gonna follow me." No, everybody should try to be on the same page.
And I think you're exactly right, but you also have to be honest with yourself.
Yeah, you also have
I've
to be
in
honest.
terms of
Yeah.
scheduling, I've the so another part of this podcast that we're doing is this series where we talk about experiences we really have on sets and things that happen, good things, bad things, and it's all firsthand experiences in our journey through actually being on set, as opposed to more practical tips. But there was one time where I was directing and I was producing, and I messed up the schedule. Oh my goodness. It was a I mean, we got everything, but the
Mhm,
reason I messed up the schedule so bad was because I wasn't honest with myself. I was trying to do something too ambitious in not enough time. And there were many reasons as to why I was doing that. Um, but that's what it came down to. I knew, deep down, I knew
mhm,
that I wouldn't be able to do all of that.
mhm.
Shocker, I wasn't. Like,
Yeah.
we still got
And
a good product and that kind of thing, but that step as you're communicating to everybody the
yeah.
plan, it needs to be a plan that you are honest with.
Yes.
Do you really think you can do this way?
Yeah.
We believe in you. You can make this film. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Really think about that schedule. Is it actually attainable?
Yeah. Like feasible. You
Yes.
got to think, is it actually, and sometimes, you will have to, you may not be able to decide on like how long you can shoot somewhere, right? Like, a lot of times if I'm shooting on location, um, I have to abide by how long they're willing to let me shoot
Yeah.
there, right?
Yeah.
And so you got a really long scene at this location, you got to make it work.
If they
Or you
only give you
go
45 minutes,
exactly
then
like, or if you've got like, if they close, they close. You got to get it in the time they give you, If you can't, you got to go back, right?
it's
You
the key to low budget filmmaking and independent filmmaking, again, at least in our experience, is the adaptability,
mhm.
right? Like things will
Yeah.
go wrong. And like Tristan and I did a project where we showed up and we were filming and we were told we had secured the location, we had papers signed, we were told that there wasn't going to be any issues. And then a true story, spur of the moment gun range opened up while we were in production, while we were trying to film this beautiful scene where like this daughter is like grieving the loss of her mother and holding her cross at the grave site and all this kind of stuff. And there's guns just boom, 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 firing off in the
Yeah,
background,
sound was
right?
not
Like
happy.
no, sound department
Sound
was not
was
happy.
really upset.
And the morale of the
Um,
team, of the crew, it's like, what did they get us into, right?
yeah, like, I mean, some people were freaking out. Some people were having like panic
Because
attacks
it's
and
a
stuff like
scary
that
thing.
because it
And
was, yeah.
and when you're leading these productions, just you don't know what can go wrong. And stuff will. And the key is trying to use that anxiety of stuff is about to like stuff will go wrong, and just using that as fuel to focus in the moment,
Yeah.
to hyperfixate and try to do your best in the moment, because something bad isn't happening right now,
Mhm.
something wrong isn't happening right now, so
Yeah.
just focus on the good and get through it, and that ultimately is how you stick to a good
And
schedule.
honestly, you don't learn these things sometimes until they happen to you,
Yes,
right? Like, I always like to say, the first short film that you ever make, you are gonna learn so much about what not to do for your next one.
exactly.
That doesn't mean your film's gonna be bad. That means it probably means your film's gonna be great because you are constantly
You're paying
yeah,
attention.
because you're thinking about
Yeah,
it, right? But that means that your next one is gonna be so much better
yeah,
because you learned the mistakes that you made.
yeah.
And those are mistakes that you can't think about. You don't know until
No,
they happen. You know. Next, we're gonna talk about casting
yeah,
because actually casting is so obviously it's important. You need actors,
yeah.
um, but there is I think casting is a process that you should really start as early as you can because you want to give yourself time to find the right people for the right roles.
Mhm,
I think something I see a lot in productions is they cast for like a month. The first people that, want the role get the role because
mhm.
the directors are first time directors are like, oh my God, someone actually wants to be in this thing. And they just cast them immediately. Um, Obviously, that's fine. But I think you want to give yourself time to really at least get some submissions, wait for some submissions. Sometimes it takes time, you know. Sometimes actors are busy, and then they'll see your project like a month or two later, right? And they'll still reach out to you. Um,
The
and to look for like what actually people who actually fit those roles.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. It's the same idea. When you're building your crew, you're casting. You're casting your crew, you know? And so much of filmmaking, this is more of an overarching philosophy, but so much of filmmaking, so much of doing your own projects, of building
hmm
projects from the ground up, it's all psychology and it's all philosophy. It's all about people, it's all about relationships, it's all about how you interact with people and how people interact with you.
yeah,
That's the basis of filmmaking, on a story level, on a technical level, on all of it. And casting is the heart and soul of that, right?
hmm
When you're going to cast your film, obviously never it, you don't want to just take what you can,
hmm
right? That's why it's important to start the casting process early. Once you have that script locked, start the casting process, even if you're not going into production for 2 years, right? Whatever it is, start the casting
yeah,
process.
get people interested.
Get
Yeah.
people interested because it is not a search for just talent. It is a search for who do you want to work with.
Mm.
And when you're auditioning people, it's really important, like, they're not you want to actually audition how they're going to work with you. You know, they can come in the room and just absolutely give a killer monologue, and it's amazing and it's great, and you're like, "Oh my god, we got to hire this person right away."
Yeah.
But then you ask them to, well, try it a little more sad or some like very basic direction like that, and they can't do it.
hmm
When you're auditioning people, when you're trying to find the right person for the role, you need to figure out how they work with you as a director. If you're a director, you need to figure out how they take direction.
Yeah.
Is just as important. I've casted people who did not give the best auditions comparatively to other actors who came in, but I could actually work with them.
Mm.
And you can see how their talent is malleable,
hmm hmm
which is really important to casting.
Right.
And all of these are great things to talk about. But Tristan, how do people actually cast?
That was yeah.
How do you
Where do you
do that?
find these mystical beings, actors? Um. So w- there's plenty of ways. Actually, I honestly, there's. It's so easy now. Um. It's not easy to find the right actor, but it's easy to look for actors. I think firstly, obviously, use your connections. Look for, ask around. Chances are you've got a friend who knows a
You've
friend
got a friend
who's
in me.
who wants to be an actor, right? Deep down, they were like a theater kid and they stopped for a bit, but maybe they want to get back into it, right? You know, chances are actors, you just haven't actually reached out to them yet. Um, Online, you can use a platform called Backstage, which is very useful. Basically, you can search for both crew and cast on Backstage. We use Backstage a lot to
Mhm.
cast our projects because you can easily see sort of people's sort of skill sets. Usually, everyone's got a profile and a reel, location.
And Backstage is subscription based, but a lot of universities have codes that
Mhm.
can get you free access to Backstage. So again, if you're in film school, if you're listening to this podcast, like, use your university as a tool.
Yes.
Uh,
Ask your professors, like,
hey, does
hey,
Backstage,
yes,
is there a link for the
and chances
university?
are there probably is.
Yeah.
Another great way is like Facebook Facebook groups. I like you going on your local Facebook group and posting a casting call. Like there were when I was casting my first short film, I got so many submissions for my casting call through that Facebook group. It was just a group for like Asian and Asian identifying filmmakers.
Mhm.
So I was getting submissions from people from everywhere around the world, like, you know, Asians from California. I was getting like people from Singapore. like, which I'm from Singapore originally, like,
This
that is
goes back
so
to
far away.
budget, by
Yeah,
the
which I'm like,
way.
which I guess I didn't specify it was gonna be like a local production, and I could not fly anybody out.
Yeah.
But but because I had, we had exchanged emails and I talked to them, I made connections.
Mhm.
And these are connections that I still have. Like,
Yeah.
these are people that I still follow, that I still talk to. When I publish something or release something, exciting news or whatever, these people congratulate me. One of them, even like, I didn't cast him, but he donated to the film.
Yeah.
So it's like, these are these are still great ways to find support for your film, even if they don't work out like on a casting basis. In general, these are still great ways to create a community, to spread word and meet people.
Yeah.
um
And on that backstage, on that Facebook group, you need to make a casting call. Or again, if you're at a university, put it out to the theater department, right? Use your network, use the resources you have on that casting call, right? You're going to have the character name. You're going to have attributes about that character. And if you're using something like Backstage, there's all these different attributes you
yeah,
can check,
parameters. Yeah, yeah,
like stuff like
it's
that,
very
right?
easy.
It's
it's
really plug and play,
it's
click
great.
and go,
Yeah.
type of thing. But then you're gonna want the log line of your film, maybe a short synopsis, and you can request whether or not you want a headshot or reel or something like that or both. I strongly recommend having at a minimum headshot,
Mhm.
and you can also link the sides. So in film and in acting in general, whether it's film, theater, or TV, when you take a part of your script and you put it online to be available to actors to read for auditions, they're called sides. So you take maybe one scene for the character of Johnny,
Mhm. It's got to
and
be an important scene too.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, it,
Not just any
it's
scene, an important scene.
it's gonna be Johnny's side, right? And you'll watermark it, right? Because you don't want it stolen, stuff like that. If you can register it with the WGA and do all these copyright registration things that we talk about again later on in another episode. But that's kind of the process of putting the casting call together,
Mhm.
and you can have it available where people can submit and send to you, and you go through those submissions and you look. But also you can go and you can search for people who intrigue you for this role,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
and you spend the time looking for
I
the actors, which I personally find more successful.
I was actually gonna say that. Like, I worked on a great project recently with my friend Tim and Kim, and how we casted our lead. Well, wasn't me. I didn't do it. I didn't do anything. Taman, my friend. What they did was they looked through sort of the local theater companies,
Mhm.
just scrolling through all the people that, like, some of these local theater companies, they just list everybody that they've ever worked with. So just scrolling through all these people, all these faces, finding the person that they thought could really fit the role, and cold emailing them. They were an actor, but they for the theater company, they had actually worked as a worked in sound,
Mm.
in sound design or mixing. And, nevertheless, they still reached out to them, and the actor was interested, and we casted him. Like that, sometimes that's how it is, and um even for my film, we originally, for our lead, we were looking at this theater actor, but she um ended up becoming busy. So there was a point where I was like, "Oh my god, we don't have a lead.
Mhm.
We're like a month out. What are we gonna do?" And my producer found a middle school arts integration teacher who also was interested in theater, from Baltimore. We were in DC, or our production was in DC, and we're like, why not, right? Just reach out, be like, hey, we are making this short film. I think you'd be really interested
Mhm.
in the lead role. Um, sure enough, she was very interested because, it was about being Japanese American. She was Japanese American. And she loved the project so much. She wanted to be in it. Like, barely needed to convince her to,
Yeah.
like she was like, yes, 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 I will come down from Baltimore. And that is who we casted. She was amazing in our film,
You
but
never know where the
sometimes
actors are gonna come
exactly,
from. You
exactly.
just don't.
So sometimes it's just different paths you have to take, right?
Yeah.
If backstage isn't working out, look for those alternative ways. I think the last thing that we'll mention about casting that's really important is mentioning if the set is union or non-union.
Mhm.
Obviously, that is something that's really important, just so that actors know.
Yeah.
A lot of time, if it's non-union and it's unpaid, actors will still want to be in it because you know we're all hungry in this industry. We all want to create and do something. And if they really like your project, they will act in it,
Yeah.
you know?
And I mean, here's and when we're talking about the union specifically, we're talking about SAG-AFTRA,
SAG
right?
after.
Which
Yeah.
is the Screen Actors Guild. It's for actors. You you just have to be careful when you're just starting out doing, your first short film or something like that, because I mean, the union is a union, right? There are rules you have to abide by if you have union actors on your set. And oftentimes that can uh, uh, definitely impact your budget and
Mhm.
definitely impact your scheduling,
Yeah.
right? So we highly encourage you, on backstage, you can filter union or not union. We highly encourage you to look at both. Just know and pay attention to some of the rules you might have to abide by. And if you're not sure, reach out to the local SAG union,
Mhm.
right? And
Mhm.
they'll happily, they probably have answers online too,
Yeah.
and if not, reach out to them and they will very happily give you all the things that need to be done. So that's the short snippet on union actors in your first production is just do your research, talk, be honest,
Mhm.
and I mean, that's always the name of the game,
Yeah.
but specifically for that.
Absolutely.
And I think now, Tristan, how how do I get $5 million in a month to make my short film? How do I
That is a great question, Cody. You just go roll up to the bank and be like, "Hey, can I have
hey,
five
can I have $5 million?
million dollars to make my
Great.
movie?" And they'll be like, "Yeah." um, Fundraising, funding, money,
Oh, it's
all
so
of it
hard.
is so difficult.
And it's where it
When you are
stops and
starting
ends.
out,
Or it
yeah.
stops and ends. It's where it starts and stops.
Yes,
Is the money.
yeah, when you're an independent filmmaker just starting out, it's you're gonna probably start with crowdfunding. That's kind of where you have to start. Um, that is the reality. So once
And
you've
and crowdfunding is basically it's just f- sourcing money from large groups of
yeah,
people, the public, right? And
yeah,
so you can use resources like Indiegogo, Kickstarter, and I mean,
Seed and Spark,
yeah,
and Seed and Spark specifically is for film projects. So sometimes you get really successful projects from Seed and Spark because people are on there looking at projects like
yeah.
film projects specifically. Obviously, Kickstarter, Indiegogo, are GoFundMe are places where other people are raising funds for something else.
Each of these crowdfunding platforms has their own kind of thing that makes them unique, and kind of do your research
Hmm.
into that, but there's also different technical things for each of them, right? Like Kickstarter, if you don't reach your goal, you don't keep your money.
Right.
At least that was the case when I was doing that kind of stuff, you know, some years ago. Whereas like Indiegogo, no matter how much you raise, even if you don't reach your goal, you get to keep your money.
Yeah.
So just
There's
pay attention to those types of
there's
things.
different types of funding.
And there's a reason
Yeah.
for it too. Like there's some benefits to doing
Yeah.
that with Kickstarter.
Yeah.
But just do your research.
It's the same in Seed and Spark. I think if you reach like a 70% goal threshold, you will keep your money. If
Mm,
not, you don't.
yeah.
Something like that. So yeah, choosing the once you choose your platform, you know, then you can sort of start to create your fundraising campaign. That is, I think, so crucial. Is
Yeah.
actually spending the time to market your film and show people why they should donate money and what this project is about and show sort of what that project's going to look like. Um, so if we were to create a timeline, right, of your pre-pro and then leading into your production, I would say, let's say you set your principal dates, your principal photography dates to this certain time or day or month. I would say try to launch your fundraising campaign minimum 2 months before you,
Minimum, yeah.
yeah, before you even shoot.
Mhm.
Um, and even before then, you should be working. You have set your, your fundraising campaign launch date, which is obviously 2 months before your principal, and work on that campaign for at least 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Um,
And what does, some of those specific elements in that campaign look like? What are things you are building into the platform?
so the thing that I will start working on is a proof of concept video. I think that is one of the most important, if not the most important part of your campaign, because it gives you an opportunity to show people what your film is going to look like, what your film is going to feel like, who are the people involved, and also for people to hear your voice,
Yeah.
to hear you talk about why the story, why now. It all leads back to the pitch deck, right?
Mhm.
It's almost like a visual version of your pitch deck.
Yeah.
um if you've already casted actors, yeah, get your actor, go out and mock up a scene,
Yeah.
or film some b-roll that you might actually use in the film, or that reflects your film. um Again, sort of coming back to the film that I did with my friend Tim and Kim, we took like, it was just like half a day
Mhm.
to film a proof of concept video, um, where they were the actor, right?
Yeah.
Because it was a story that kind of about like someone that looked like them. It felt right, to just have Taman be in it. Um, Record some voiceover, and then even shoot some tests, some camera tests, like blocking tests, framing tests, which it was around like a car back then. And, you know, it could be as little as like half a day's work of shooting, and it can benefit you so much.
And the point of having this video in this campaign, when people, right, friends and family will donate to the campaign, right? They're, hopefully you have a supportive network
Yeah.
like that,
Yeah.
um, but it's to demonstrate your skill. This goes back to something we talked
Hmm.
about in episode 1 of having that confidence to convey to the world that you are able to do this and that you are good at this. That's what this video is. It's
Yeah.
it's giving people who might donate to your project confidence that not only A, will you complete this to begin with,
Hmm.
but then also that they're donating to something that will be professional, that will be
Yes.
good, and try to infuse. Don't just sit in front of a camera
Hmm.
and talk about it, right? What like Tristan said, try something to use a proof of concept, even if it's just visuals
Yeah,
proof of
up the
concept.
production value, right?
Like,
Like, don't just show up with your iPhone and shoot something. Like, if I if I watch a proof of like a fundraising video, like a director being like, "Hey, this is about what the movie's about, and donate it, please." If I watch your video and it is shot on iPhone, no sound gear, like this straight out of the iPhone,
mhm,
microphone, you're in some kind of studio space or whatever, and you haven't really lit it or whatever, you're just outside, and you don't have any proof of concept or whatever, I'm not gonna be interested. You talking about your film is not enough to get me to donate, You have to put in effort. To make it look good.
and, another important thing I think is, yes, there's a lot to be said about upping the production value, but, a lot of people don't have access to that kind of gear,
Mhm.
but still want to do this kind of project. So what do? You can shoot on iPhone. I mean, iPhones are getting better and better, but look up some YouTube videos on how to make it more cinematic, right?
Mhm.
How do you light using the lights you have?
Mhm.
Independent filmmaking is all about using the resources at your disposal. If you're doing a fundraising video, you may not have all of this equipment around you. That's part of the reason why you might need that money, but there still are ways to up your production value. Take your iPhone, get B-roll, right?
Mhm.
There's still ways to do it within
Yeah.
your means, whatever your means are.
Yeah. Even investing
Um,
in like a cheap like lavalier or
Yeah,
microphone like will up your production value. Placing your subject, which may be yourself, in like framing yourself,
yeah.
like differently is it. Those are all things that you can do. Um, you know, I think the like even like shooting like inside versus outside,
Mhm.
not having to combat like noise everywhere and
Yeah,
stuff like
yeah.
that. Like even that is a choice, right?
Like
So
shooting vertical versus horizontal,
yeah,
right?
that's
Like it's
also
a small
or
choice.
shooting both ways, right? So that
Yeah,
you have different videos targeted for different platforms.
yeah.
That is something that don't post a vertical video on YouTube. Don't post a horizontal video on TikTok
Stories.
or story, yeah,
Yeah.
or Instagram Reels, right? Like that is what you can that's those are things you have control on doing.
And then outside of the intro video on that campaign, you're going to have again, it's basically you take your pitch deck, you deconstruct it, and you put it into the Indiegogo or Kickstarter or whatever you're doing.
Mhm.
In addition to that video, you're going to have your log line. You're going to have a synopsis of the film. You're going to have your key actors who are playing the characters. You're going to have information about the characters. You're going
Yeah.
to have a visual treatment. You're going to have bios about the major crew members as well
And the
with
actors.
headshots
Yeah.
and the actors.
Yeah.
You're gonna have everything that's in that pitch deck, but in that fundraising campaign.
Mhm.
And for example, like if you're using Indiegogo and from there you can have the option to provide like gifts to people
Mhm.
if you meet your
Perks.
goal.
Yeah.
Perks
Yeah.
is what they're called, and there's all these add-ons that you can explore no matter what platform you use. But across the board, that video is, if you don't have it, that's okay, right? But it's a major booster in the success of the campaign. Like
Mhm.
it's been demonstrated statistically time and time again.
Yeah.
And
And it just shows
filling
you're
out,
putting in effort,
yes,
right?
it's all
Like,
about the effort thing,
yeah.
especially at this stage. People,
Yes.
if friends and family are giving you money, they just, at least in my experience, just
Mhm.
want to feel that you're trying
Yeah,
and
they
that
wanna
you're
see
trying
passion.
hard.
Yeah,
They
they
want to see
do.
passion.
Yeah.
So use that to show your passion.
And the last thing I'll say about the Indiegogo or fundraising campaign is, this is another benefit of casting early is if you've already casted and you're starting your fundraising, you can show people, visualize this is who is going to play this character. Like that is actually so huge in helping visualize your role, like your film is this is who we actually have in the role,
Mhm.
you know. I was really lucky to cast to be fully casted when I launched my sort of fundraising campaign, and I think that really helped because people could really see like these are the real people, not like the famous celebrities that I wanted,
Yeah.
like albeit I casted like people that I'm so proud of casting and like people that you know were amazing in their roles, like this is who this is the putting the faces to like
Yeah.
the people on the page, right?
There are other ways to try and get money outside of crowdfunding campaigns, right? There's scholarships, there's grants, there's screenwriting competitions
Hmm.
that you can do.
Now those probably won't fully fund you, that
No.
can give you partial funding, but it is still any money is good, right? Like it's any money is
And
helpful.
another big part of this is you have to be willing. I'm not saying this is the answer because I think it's best to avoid this at all costs, but you do have to be willing to put some of your money in.
Hmm.
Now,
Like
you
you have to be willing to invest.
yes, you have to be, if people want to see that you're willing to invest in yourself,
Yes, yes.
and if you don't invest in yourself, then why would I invest in you, right?
Hmm.
Like, so you have to be willing to do that. Having a filmmaking savings, like that's something I do. I still do pretty low budget stuff,
Hmm.
I put aside from my paycheck from projects I do a month, like an amount of money to go back into either our business or into a production that we're doing.
Hmm.
But it's important to not go into debt.
Yeah, that being said, don't go to debt. Don't like maybe can I if I this is a video like put like in big red letters, do not go into debt by making a movie. Like, do not take out $50,000 and expect to get that $50,000 back. Obviously, like, just don't ruin your livelihood for a movie,
And
right?
don't say to friends and family who are giving money to, "Oh, I'll get your money back."
Yes,
You
they are not
probably
getting,
won't.
you
They're
are
not
not
getting
getting
their
that.
money
They are
back,
not getting their money back, you know?
which is
Do,
fine. Like
yeah,
that's
yes,
fine.
like,
You just got to be clear about it.
yes, you gotta, like, don't lie to people.
No.
Like, they're like, this is gonna be great. This is gonna make money, and then that money is gonna fund the next movie. Let's, you gotta be practical. You gotta be realistic with yourself. Um, you are investing in yourself. You're investing in creating a film, and that film is going to go to festivals. It's hopefully going to get exposure. It's going to just help you connect with more people. At the end of the day, that's all that's one of the things that you are trying to do is just connect with more people, get people connected with you,
Yeah.
get people to just learn, okay, this is this person and he made this film.
Yeah.
Like, you are not, it is not exactly a lucrative venture.
Filmmaking is all about the long game.
Yeah,
At
it
least
is.
that's
Yeah, yeah,
what we
absolutely.
as beginners, or
Absolutely. Oh
not
my god.
beginners, but we as early career professionals keep telling ourselves.
Yeah.
Is it's
It's
it's a long game because it is.
I think you also have to be, careful of investing into a film and then asking for that money back in crowdfunding. Um because you never know how much you are going to make
Yeah.
in crowdfunding, right? Like, you could make a kick-ass like campaign, you know, but let's say for example, right? You spend $20,000 making a film and you shoot the film and everything, and then you crowdfund asking for that $20,000 back.
Hmm.
You can have the greatest film and, like, you could shoot this amazing film, you could cut a trailer that looks awesome, and you could crowdfund, and you still may not make that 20,000 back.
Yeah.
You don't know. It is a risk. Now, you can take that risk. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not gonna tell you how to spend your money or whatever, right? But, you know, let's try not to
At, at,
make risks for yourself. Like,
at the end of the
try,
day, filmmaking this thing, it's a part of life,
yeah.
right? Like you still got to buy groceries. As
You still
much as
gotta
I
eat. You
don't
still
buy
gotta,
groceries. But,
or Taco Bell. In your case, it's Taco Bell.
yes, I
Which,
love
you know,
Taco Bell. Had it for lunch today, by the way, just so everyone knows.
Yes, you be realistic. And you be surprised. A little bit of money can go a long way when you
Definitely.
start,
Definitely.
reaching out to your network, borrowing, asking for favors, being a nice person. I have plenty of times we have secured locations for free
Yeah.
because we just talk to people.
Yeah.
And it helps when you're an independent, if you're a student, if you're just a nice person and you're just talking about this movie that you're really passionate about. So never underestimate how much you can do with little to no money as well.
Absolutely. And that is kind of the process of doing your first short film,
It's
or at
so
least getting into
broad.
production.
Yes.
It's so much to talk
But
about, but to quickly break it down just one more time before all you beautiful people go off to do your wonderful
to
things,
make something, the
to make
next Star
something
Wars.
or eat instant noodles, or whatever the day may bring. Who
Because
knows?
you're
But
saving for your first film.
Taco Bell,
Yeah.
So remember the why.
Mhm.
Never let the why go. It
Mhm.
is what is going to carry you through the entire process and
Mhm.
your entire life,
Mhm.
but never let the why go. Make that pitch deck,
Yeah.
wear that why on your sleeve in the pitch deck. Then after the pitch deck, you're going to start dealing with schedule and budgeting and casting, and all of these things intertwine, and it's really hard to separate them from each other. But look at your resources, look at what you have. Okay, do I think I can get $1,000? Right? You may not know the answer, but there will be a part of you that knows whether or not it's attainable.
Mhm.
Assess the resources you have, consider your producible script,
Mhm.
and start building from there.
Yeah.
Right? Start building out, how many days will it take to shoot? Can this fit within our presumable budget?
Mhm.
Right? Meanwhile, at the same time, all these things happen at the same time. It's a lot of work to do. You start building out your campaign for Indiegogo. You start letting people know that you're doing a project. You start
Mhm.
planting the seed that you're going to need money for this.
Mhm.
Right? As you continue along this process, you continue to build out the schedule, you continue to build out the budget. What holes do I have in crew? Am I hiring people that are passionate and good at their positions, that
Mhm.
care about me, that care about this
Yeah.
project? And then where are the gaps left? Do I need to bring in professionals? How much is that going to cost?
Mhm.
From there, you're looking at, okay, these locations, how many locations, how many location switches in a day? No more than 3, no more than shooting 5 pages in a day. Do I need to switch, do day to night? Do I need to do an overnight shoot, right?
Yeah.
Like all of these elements. Again, meanwhile, you are now launching your campaign. You're
Mhm.
starting to get that going. You're putting your campaign on your socials. You're sending it to friends and family, to your great uncle 14 times removed that you haven't talked to since you were 6 years old. You're sending it to everybody.
Yeah.
But in sending it to everybody, the only way you're going to get this money again is if you are explaining the why. Why is this story important? Why should they invest in you? And why
Mhm.
now? Why
Mhm.
are you making this film now?
Yeah.
It's a really important question to think
Yeah.
about
Just in general.
in general, but it
Yes.
guides you through this whole
Yes.
process.
Yes.
Pre-production takes a long time. It takes months and even years to do,
Mhm.
but it is attainable.
Yeah.
And
It can feel like a lot. Oh my god.
because it is,
Yes, like if you feel overwhelmed about all this stuff,
that's okay.
that's normal because it is a lot of moving parts to think about. It's something that you cannot do alone,
No.
right? So look for help, look for producers who can help you, look for friends who are passionate
Mhm.
about it that will help you, right? Um
And then dive
and
in and
and
then
just
get to
yeah,
work. Do the
chip
work.
chip at different things every day, in little increments, right? Like yes, it's going to take a long time,
The beauty is because there is so much to do.
Mhm.
If you get frustrated or bored or don't know how to continue with the budget, switch to the schedule,
Right.
switch to casting.
Yeah,
There's
exactly.
so much to do. Use that as a tool to not get
Overwhelmed by something, yeah, or
overwhelmed.
you're frustrated that like somebody is not emailing you back
Yeah,
about something. Work on something
yeah,
else, because there is no, you can't you again you gotta wait on people to hear back, and you can't just sit around and expect an answer and
exactly,
not work on other stuff. You gotta move to other things. Keep
exactly.
yourself busy, and just slowly chip away at all the work that you have to do, because when you start getting to that sort of 2 month 1 month mark before you shoot, you're gonna realize like, wow, there are things that I could have done
Hmm.
before, like 2 months ago, 1 month ago, that now I have to do, you know? And you're gonna start feeling the pressure, you're gonna start feeling the rush, and that is totally normal.
Yeah.
This is a learning process. Um, but
So
yeah, that's
that's
like the
the
ba-
basis of doing your first short film.
basics of pre-production. Where do you even start?
Yeah,
That's I think we gave a pretty good groundwork to
yeah,
like starting a project,
yeah.
and I think yeah, I
So
hope it I hope that gives some people some peace of mind.
yeah,
Like yes, it's scary
yeah,
to even start. So many people ask me, where do I even start,
yeah.
Tristan? Like what do I even think about? Right? And yes,
It's
we
all this
feel you.
stuff.
We feel you. Like even with the amount of projects that we've done, we also ask ourselves sometimes, where do we start?
Where do you start? And
Um,
we hope this helps with that.
yeah,
And with that, thank you for tuning in to the Best Boys podcast. I'm Cody McLeod Rogers.
I'm Tristan Au. Go make a short film,
Let's do it.
and we'll see you next time.
Best of luck.